my name is Ella, and guess what time it is? It's cookie time! This year I'm planning on selling 200 boxes or more. Please help supporting my troop by buying 1 boxes or maybe even 2 if you want to. My troop is planning on going on an exciting trip and helping my community. Please help support me by buying 1 box or more. Bye!
What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for January 21st, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a very, very, very cold Tuesday edition of the podcast. It is Tuesday, so that means it's time for a little bit of positivity / motivation. And today's quote kind of falls right in line with our forgiveness theme for 2025. And this quote comes from Chris Jammy. And it goes, grudges are for those who insist that they are owed something. Forgiveness, however, is for those who are substantial enough to move on. And that, to me, this is deeper than just the sports theme we've been doing all month so far. But it does tie in with that. And, we could use all the good vibes right now we can get. So I figured, why not discuss this quote? But holding a grudge is almost like an entitlement type thing where you feel you're owed something. And let me be the first to tell you, and I don't know who needs to hear this today, at the end of the day, you're not entitled to shit. You're not entitled to anything. Nobody owes you a thing. We've talked on here before about being sort of in control of how you perceive things and how you move about them. So holding that grudge really gets you nowhere. It's a waste of energy because nobody's going to give you anything because truthfully, you're not entitled for it. So just stop wasting your time hanging on to the thought that you're owed something from somebody or somebody needs to give you this, and just instead forgive, move on. Life's too short and you'll feel better. And as we've been talking this month with forgiving those people in Philly sports who have done us wrong, as Philly fans, we do hang on to a lot of things, and I did not realize how much we held on to until I started to go through the list of people that I'm like, God, I still hate him. God, he did this. But I do think that it does feel good, and half of it's tongue-in-cheek with the sports aspect of it. But in your real life, just go out, forgive, move on. Life is way too short. Enjoy the journey. And I think tying it back to Philly sports, too often we're not enjoying the journey. And I'll get more into this when we start on the Eagles coverage, but the whole ripping Jalen Hurts for his passing stats and things like this. We're in the NFC Championship game for the second time in 3 years. Enjoy the ride. You might be holding a grudge against somebody who's a friend, a family member, whoever, and you're missing out on so much. So enjoy the ride, forgive, don't hold those grudges because life is way too short. And truthfully, holding a grudge is a sense of entitlement. And I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but truthfully, and this is something my dad used to say when I was a kid a lot, nobody owes you anything. You got to go out there and get it. So if you're holding that grudge, expecting somebody to forgive you and let something go, you're going to be waiting for a long time. So be the bigger person. Go out, forgive someone. Because remember, grudges are for those who insist they're owed something. Forgiveness, however, is for those who are substantial enough to move on. So be substantial, move on, stop holding the grudge, and forgive. Doesn't mean you have to like the person. Doesn't mean you have to be BFFs. But stop holding on to that negativity. Get that weight off of your shoulder and go out and forgive someone. Hopefully you can take that throughout the rest of the week, the rest of the month, even the rest of the year. But it does have a Philly sports tie just because that's what we've been doing this month. But it's so much deeper than that. And just don't hang on to the negativity because it's not worth it and you're wasting time and energy. All right, let's get into some housekeeping before we get into today's episode. First and foremost, want to wish happy birthday to the OG Philly Sports History subscriber and listener, my mom, who is celebrating her 65th birthday today. Happy birthday, Mom. So if you're able to connect with my mom somewhere on social media, have her number, text her, wish her a very happy 65th birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. Have some things in the work. Just need to find the time to do it. Was messing around with a new camera setup yesterday. Realized I didn't have all the pieces. So hopefully later this week, you'll have a different view of my lovely face. And then, as Ella said at the beginning of this podcast, buy the Girl Scout cookies. All the stuff you need is in the description. Look, you're going to buy them anyway. Why not buy them from Ella and help out her Girl Scout troop? Check out my boys at, excuse me, still getting over this cold, plus the screaming at the Eagles game on Sunday. But check out my boys over at the On Patterson newsletter. It gets delivered right to your inbox. We're featured in there a couple weeks. Some very good Eagles and Sixers and Flyers and Phillies coverage in there. So go check them out. It'll get delivered right to your inbox. All right, speaking of those Sixers, tonight they're in Denver. No Joe. Super. Excuse me, and that's how I feel about the Sixers right now. I mean, not really much to get excited for in this game. They're out on the West Coast. No Joe. We'll update you tomorrow. If you want to celebrate the fact and protest the Sixers, go to Philly Goat. They have a whole line of just disgruntled Sixers fans and toxic relationships with Philly sports. Oh, my goodness. I apologize for this. I was fine all morning. Excuse me, until I started talking. But Philly Goat has you covered with anything you want to complain about the Sixers for. They have you covered. Go check out their site. Be sure to use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off. And be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast, doing great things with their Sports Fan Network. And that is available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Oh, my goodness. And I never do this. I'm putting in a cough drop for the rest of the show. Oh, again, I apologize. Flyers are in action tonight down at the Wells Fargo Center, taking on the Red Wings. Looking for their sixth game in a row with a point. So hopefully they can continue their momentum as we hit into almost February. This year is just flying by. All right, so let's talk about the Eagles. And a lot of the big story was just complaining about Jalen's passing or lack thereof. And look, I get it. I absolutely get it. The passing game has been anemic. But in all honesty, they haven't needed it. And the games they needed the passing game, they've been able to pass the ball when they needed to. They're going to need to pass the ball on Sunday. That's going to go without saying. So, but I think it goes back to just enjoy the ride. I mean, think about this. Like, Jalen's going to have his haters. There's going to be people that come out and say, oh, he's this, he's that. But at the end of the day, the dude is a winner. And sure, he might be a little banged up on Sunday, but trust me when I say I'm confident with Jalen Hurts leading us into the NFC Championship game. I mean, the dude wins, does what he needs to do, makes the plays when he has to. Nick Sirianni spoke yesterday. A lot of those checkdowns were things that, or not checkdowns, but audibles that he checked into. Really seemed to pay dividends. So as far as I'm concerned, just enjoy the ride. We're in the NFC Championship game. We're one win away from our second Super Bowl in 3 years. And if you're an old school Philly fan, let that sink in. 2 Super Bowls within 3 years. Enjoy the ride. His knee is gimpy. We'll see what happens as the week goes. Probably won't get much of an update until Wednesday, but they're probably going to be forced to pass, so he's going to have to make plays, and I'm confident in the fact that he's going to make those plays. I don't think he was passing that bad until the snow came, and both teams kind of relied on the run once the snow came. So I think the conditions and the situation dictated that, but I'm not as concerned as everybody else is. I'm more concerned with the knee. Because if he's not able to make those runs and take off for first downs, that's where we could run into a problem. Because in looking at the game tape and highlights and just what I saw in the stadium the past 2 weeks, the receivers have got to do a better job of getting open more consistently too. They're not doing him any favors, but we will continue to update him and Quinyon on their injuries. I do think both of them should be good to go. They might be a little limited, but both have said we'll see how the week goes. And I really don't think there's any way Jalen's not going to play. I think Q said he's fine. I think they'll be okay, but we'll continue to monitor as we go. But at the end of the day, I think what people forget, this is a championship level defense. And at this point in the season, that's what you lean on. You lean on that defense. Am I comparing Jalen Hurts to Trent Dilfer or like a Brad Johnson? No. However, I think he's a little bit step up from those guys. So put that with a championship style defense, we're all right. We're okay. I'm getting a lot of I feel like this is very 2017 vibes I'm getting when after that Atlanta game in the divisional round, everybody was writing off the Eagles. Oh, Minnesota's going to come in here and smoke them. And we saw what happened in that game. We'll talk more about that here in a couple minutes, but getting a lot of 2017 vibes, and I think the crowd's going to be fired up. Washington's, it's going to be a tough game, but I really, right now, I don't see them coming in here and beating us, no matter how limited Jalen is. So we'll see. I think the defense is going to fall on them. But remember, that's a championship level defense, and that's what you need. The final 2 games of the season, that's what you need. And they do what they need to do to win, and I think that cannot be overlooked. I think at the end of the day, if you're looking for Jalen to throw for 300 yards, that's not him. And truthfully, that's not necessarily the style of the NFL right now anymore anyway. So look at what Jalen's doing and enjoy the ride. But speaking of the NFC Championship game, I did see this stat. The Eagles have been on a pretty impressive streak since the year 2000. This is their 6th time hosting an NFC Championship game, and 6 times since 2002. 3rd in 8 years. 7 times they've made it to the NFC Championship game now. We're living the golden era of Eagles football this past quarter century. So where we were the quarter century before was not good. So enjoy the ride. Let's go out there, have fun, and just beat the pants off of the Washington Commanders. The Eagles Commanders do have one previous playoff experience. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, and that was the 1990 wildcard game where Washington beat the Eagles 20-6. Ben Smith returned a fumble for a touchdown, and it got overturned and really just crushed the Eagles that day. But I'm getting 2017 vibes, but that does lead us to today's question of the day. What's your confidence level here on a Tuesday? All things considered. We did this last week, and everybody was in the middle range. But is your confidence high, medium, or low that the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl on Sunday? 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. I'm kind of in the middle right now. I kind of am cautiously optimistic. I want to see what the injuries and everything come out on Wednesday. But I'm feeling better right now than I did going into the Rams game. Even riding down to the game, I did not have a good feeling about the Rams game in all, if I'm being completely transparent with you. But I was glad I was wrong. I'm feeling slightly better about this Washington game. But that's right now. I want to see the injury updates and everything like that. But this team is giving me 2017 vibes. So I'm here for it. All right, recapping yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, who was the GOAT of the game? 80% of you, Saquon Barkley. No real surprises there. I personally would have went with Jalen Carter just because if it wasn't for him, LA probably takes that touchdown in. But thank you as always for participating in the question of today. Today, it's what's your confidence level on the Eagles game on Sunday? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. All right, I already kind of teased this, but it is NFC Championship week, so let's go with one of the better ones and more fun ones. Today, we're going to go back to 2018. And on this day in 2018, the Eagles beat the Vikings 38-7 in the 2017 NFC Championship game. Vikings came in as a 3-point favorite. They were coming off the Minneapolis Miracle, where they shouldn't even have been in that game. They put the Viking stuff and did the skull chant in front of the Rocky statue. They did strike first, but then Patrick Robinson turned the momentum with this 50-yard pick six. And then after that, the legend of Nick Foles was born. He had Alshon Jeffrey right before half with a 53-yarder. And then the flea flicker in the third quarter put the game away. Eagles win 38-7. Punched their ticket to Super Bowl 52. And it was an easy coast. Very, very few times, because usually we leave early if a game is like this. But I never remember a game where most of the third quarter and the entire fourth quarter, we're just partying it up in the stands, waiting for the trophy presentation. But on this day, the legend of Nick Foles was born as he beat the Vikings 38-7. Patrick Robinson got it started. Alshon Jeffrey got in the act. Torrey Smith got in on the act. LeGarrette Blount scored a touchdown. Jake Elliott was kicking field goals. And we go on to Super Bowl 52. And then finally today, our forgiveness for 2025. This is another biggie. We're going to forgive Terry Francona. Terry Francona was manager of the Phillies from 1997 to 2000. Compiled a 285, 363 loss. Averaged 90 losses a season, including 94 in 1997. And then 97 losses in the year 2000 before he got fired. They never finished higher than third place. And really was just symbolic of those post-1993 teams where they were trying to figure it out. They had some young guys. They were bringing in some aging free agents. And they were just not very good teams. And Terry Francona certainly did not help the cause at all. Of course, though, he goes to Boston and then to Cleveland and magically learned how to be a manager. Took those teams to 11 postseason appearances, 3 World Series, and including 2 World Championships. However, I do say that first one in Boston, that was not his team. He just came into a ready-made situation and just his job was to not screw it up. I still say that. But this is about forgiveness. So Tito Francona, I forgive you. I forgive you for using Philadelphia as a training ground to make all your mistakes, which you made a lot of when you were manager here. I forgive you for sucking as our manager. You certainly did not do anything to make those players better. And then I forgive you for learning all magically how to manage as soon as you leave Philly. And all of a sudden, people are saying you might be a Hall of Fame manager. You certainly were not a Hall of Fame manager in Philadelphia. But all of that aside, I forgive you because I'm not entitled to you owing me anything like we said in the quote. So Tito Francona, I forgive you. I feel better. I feel like that weight has been lifted off my shoulder. The vibes are good heading into Washington on Sunday, and we need all the positive vibes we can get. So Terry Francona, I forgive you. On this day in 2018, Eagles beat the Vikings 38-7 in the NFC Championship game to go on to Super Bowl 52. The legend of Nick Foles was born on this day. I shouldn't say the legend of Nick Foles was born. I guess he had the 7 touchdowns, the 27-2 year. But maybe BDN was born this day. Who knows? But Nick Foles had his coming out party, carried that momentum to a Super Bowl victory. We'll have more on the Eagles Commanders as we go through the week, especially when it comes to Jalen and Quignon's injuries. But you got to enjoy the ride, man. This is a special team. I'm getting good vibes from this team. But let me know what your confidence level is. Is it high, medium, or low on a Tuesday heading into this week's game? And remember, forgive people. It's not worth it. grudges are for those who insist they're owed something. Forgiveness, however, is for those who are substantial enough to move on. And again, nobody owes you anything. Nobody's going to give you anything. I apologize for my coughing spell halfway through this show. I will be better tomorrow, I promise. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for January 21st, 2025. Be sure, if you can, to say happy birthday to my mom. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.